0. And I have a quote that's rather famous around the country, and I'm going to open with that, and that is that people who live in liberty think differently than people who live in bondage. And I am here to oppose the daytime curfew, and really I agree with the gentleman about the nighttime curfew also, but right now under discussion is the daytime curfew. Liberty is either won or lost at a local level. And some of you, and I really am sorry that we're not able to have more of an exchange because I would enjoy that a whole lot more. But some of you are on public record and have made public statements that you don't understand why the citizens of this community are so upset about this ordinance. And so what I would like to do in these few minutes is really try to explain that a little bit more. Because when somebody says you don't understand about that, see, people who live in liberty do think differently than people who live in bondage. And the very fact if you say you don't understand, that in itself tells me things about you that I don't want to know. And it tells our community things that we don't want to know. And yet we have to know. So thank you very much for the statements that you've made. See, there's a conflict here of worldviews. There's a conflict of where the future of our nation is going. And since liberty is won or lost on the local level, then these things are more important on the local level than they are in many ways in what's going on in Washington, D.C. And so I'm very thankful for all of you that have turned out, because you really do make a difference, and one person can change the world. There's a conflict between, in the European system, where basically government gives people their rights, then in that system, nothing is permitted unless it's specifically allowed. In the United States, we understood that rights come from God and not from government, and therefore everything is permitted except that which is specifically restricted. Those two worldviews cannot coexist. And right now, we're having a clash of those two worldviews. And in the United States system, under the protection of a Constitution, that Constitution is written not to tell the people what rights they have, but to protect the people from the encroachment of too much government, of too much civil government. And so one of the very fundamental principles of our nation is that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And by definition, your ordinance makes everybody guilty until proven innocent. So on face value, it is not even within the bounds. I know you just keep redefining what's constitutional and keep declaring things constitutional, and you can relabel them all you want, but it doesn't change the facts. And these people know, and so do the other people of this community. They know what's going on, whether you want to understand that or not. The other concern for the business owners of this area it's really hard to believe. Because in essence, you may not be formally, but for all practical purposes, this ordinance deputizes them and makes them arms of the state, whether they want to be or not. It forces them to enforce something that's none of their business to enforce. And it puts them in an untenable position. And a law that puts someone in a position where they can't obey it or not obey it is by itself void on its face. So we come back to the whole concept of liberty, and liberty is indivisible. See, one of the ways that liberty has been eroded all around the world, anytime that there's a move of tyranny instead of a move of liberty, is small segments of society are compartmentalized. They are segmented out, and their liberties are restricted. And then in the process of that, then with the people, the citizens get used to that segment of society losing their liberty. And in the process, people get used to it and start to accept those things as normal. Well, pretty soon what you accept as normal becomes normal. And we have a huge loss of liberty in the process. Have you ever had a windshield of your car that gets a ding in it? right? It might even be able to get a couple dings, maybe even 3. But those dings are very similar to this little segments of society who have their liberties restricted. And whether they're under 17 or not, or whatever their age, is not the point. Whether they're just a segment of society. See, we can't do this to everybody, so we try to zero in on certain definitions of people. And so just like with your windshield, you might be able to drive that thing for years with those little dings in it. But one day, on a really hot summer day, you're going to come out, and what are you going to find? Either a crack all the way through, or pop, the windshield popped out. And in many ways, what we're trying to prevent is even those dings in the windshield. We don't want to see it go to a point where it can't be reversed. And so there are still a lot of liberty lovers in this community. And your job is really defined throughout history as being lesser magistrate. And a lesser magistrate is a person who stands for the people. They look to the needs of the people that they have represented them to protect them from the encroachment of a bigger government on the other side. And so we're looking for you for protection from these kinds of things, not for you being the cause or the ones who are perpetrating these kinds of restrictions. And so I just want to really challenge you, stand up and be counted, not as politicians, but as statesmen. And statesmen stand for truth, whether it's popular or not. But in this case, wow, you can stand for liberty and be popular, because I think that the people of your community really want you to repeal this ordinance. So that's all I have to say, except am I allowed to give you a present or not? Am I allowed to give you a handout or not?
What's the dollar amount?
What did he say? Yes or no?
Can you leave it with the city secretary?
Okay, I will. Okay.